Senator Canavan.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Indigenous Affairs, Senator Scullion, representing the Minister for Energy, Resources and Northern Australia. Will the Minister update the Senate on how this government is supporting major economic projects and infrastructure like airports, roads and ports across Northern Australia?
The Minister for Indigenous Affairs, representing the Minister for Energy, Resources and Northern Australia, Senator Scullion.
Mr President, could I first of all thank Senator Canavan for his question and note his long-standing and keen interest in supporting the development of Australia's north. Senator Canavan would know well that unlocking the potential of the north is good news for people of the Northern Territory, good news for people of north-western Australia and of northern Queensland. It's a region that contributes over 11% of our GDP, over 40% of the land mass, and yet only 5% of our population, so it's a particularly different demographic. In June this year, the government released the first ever white paper on developing Northern Australia, which is a blueprint for the long-term development of this particular region. At the heart of this initiative is a $5 billion concessional loan facility, the Northern Australia Infrastructure Facility. This facility will provide up to $5 billion worth of concessional loans over 5 years, commencing in the 16-17 financial year. Yesterday, Minister Frydenberg released a consultation paper to seek feedback on the proposed design and operation of the $5 billion Northern Australia Infrastructure Facility. This is a significant milestone in this program, Mr President, which will encourage and complement investment in Northern Australian infrastructure. I've already had positive reports from those that attended the Northern Australia Showcase that Minister Rob has just hosted in my hometown of Darwin. I understand some of the world's most significant investors were there to explore opportunities for the development of Northern Australia. So after many years in the wilderness, it must be so encouraging for so many residents across Northern Australia to look forward to increased investment and activities in our communities. There really has never been a better time to be a resident of Northern Australia.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Canavan.
Thank you, Mr President. I do have a supplementary. Will the Minister advise the Senate how the Northern Australian Infrastructure Facility specifically will maximise investment in the north?
Minister.
North Australia continues to face infrastructure challenges, partly because of its low population density and a remoteness. The North Australia Infrastructure Facility will help to fill the critical infrastructure gaps identified by the Northern Australian audit. Importantly, the facility has been designed in such a way that it won't crowd out private sector investment. The facility will act in partnership with private financiers and the governments from the Northern Territory, Queensland and West Australia. The loans will help to build the economic capacity and longer-term expansion of industry and population in Northern Australia and deliver benefits to all Australians. The North Australian Infrastructure Facility will be able to provide more patient capital that allows for a project to reach maturity before being repaid. As a Minister, but also as the Senator for the Northern Territory, I can tell you that this is going to be a game changer for North Australia.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Canavan, final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Can the Minister please outline what the government's policies to develop the north will have, what effects, the government's policies will have on the north, on communities across Northern Australia, including in your role as Indigenous Affairs Minister on remote Indigenous communities?
I'll allow that question to stand. It nearly doesn't go to being a supplementary question. The question was asked of the Minister representing the Minister for Energy Resources in Northern Australia. Order! It relates to Northern Australia. I'll allow the question to stand. Minister.
The government's North Australian agenda will drive development and growth in Northern Australia, including for those Indigenous people who live in the north. This government is committed to practical action to create more opportunities for Indigenous participation, and the White Paper announces a range of measures to ensure that we include Indigenous people in this major investment in infrastructure. We have $20 million to support native title holders directly for the first time. And for the first time, we'll actually provide equity. So when a big developer comes and says, listen, we'd like to go in some sort of partnership in a land, at least they'll have the capacity to be able to make a comprehensive response. $17 million to support secure property rights and township leasing, $12 million to expand opportunities for Indigenous ranger groups. On top of this, we're ensuring we include commitments for specific measurable targets for Indigenous employment and supply use, because we on this side of the chamber recognise that the private sector must be part of the solution.
Thank you, Minister.